Yoimiya or Hu Tao, which one is the best and which one are you guys gonna have the most fun with? Is there gonna be one that fits your playstyle better than the other one, or one that you're gonna have more fun with and allow yourself to really explore the game in different ways? Today we're gonna be tackling the different weapon availability, their maximum builds, their free-to-play weapons, the teammates that they can use in certain different ways, and the applications you can use these characters. And I thought this would be a good video to tackle right now because I know a lot of people either have Hu Tao or are waiting for the Hu Tao rerun because she is just like a really good Pyro DPS. Then Yoimiya looks super awesome. She's got them sweet tattoos, right? And she also is going to have a couple different applications as a Pyro DPS that other characters really can't do. And that's really going to be the delineation between which one of these characters that you're picking from due to the things we just talked about here. And let's go into it. Let's start it. So right away, all things said and done, who does more damage, Hu Tao or Yoimiya? Now, this is going to be a tricky subject. They're going to be very similar in damage as long as you're utilizing them in their own specific ways. Hu Tao herself will do more damage. She has bigger burst damage through her elemental burst. She's going to be able to utilize vaporize, reverse vaporize better than Yoimiya can. Yoimiya can do it as well, but she's not going to be able to do it to all of her attacks. That's going to lower a little bit of her own self DPS there. Or Hu Tao can do it to the vast majority of her attacks there, and it's going to be a little bit burstier on Hu Tao with that normal attack into charge attack animation cancel. But let's talk about that. So between the two characters, what's the main thing that segregates them from each other? Well, that's going to be their playstyle. One of them is insanely brain dead easy to play as a main DPS because they both utilize this 9 to 10 second window on their elemental skill. Hu Tao, you have to manage her HP. You want it as low as possible without her dying to get the biggest percent damage bonus, especially if you're using their main weapon, right? Each of them have their own main weapon. We'll talk about that. In Hu Tao's case, that's going to be Staff of Homa. And that's going to really want you to play as little HP as possible to get the most damage as possible. And that's where she's going to shine the biggest because she has a much higher skill cap. Whereas Yoimiya says, push E, give me a good weapon, and let's do some damage, right? Let's do some reverse vaporize. Let's melt some things. Well, not actually melt, but melt their HP bars as fast as humanly possible in 10 seconds. And that's really how they are similar, but different at the same time. They both have a 9 to 10 second window to do a bunch of damage. One of them wants you to jump through hoops, do the charge attack animation cancel, right? Learn how to do that, manage my HP, all of that good stuff. And you get rewarded for that in and of itself. Whereas Yoimiya just says, I just want to hit E and just everything in sight. The other thing that where they're kind of similar is they both give a party bonus basically when they're done doing the rotation, right? Whereas Hu Tao gives crit rate, Yoimiya gives attack percent. But Yoimiya here is a little bit different than Hu Tao because Yoimiya's elemental burst is more of a supportive elemental burst where she is able to do an elemental burst. It does a tiny amount of damage when you activate it, but to 5 times. You can practice once every 2 seconds. If an ally that you have on your party attacks an enemy, it will proc an AoE pyro damage, which is decent damage, but it's not going to be super high for Yoimiya because she's really going to be geared towards that normal attack on the field. And this is going to allow you to do a lot of cool things. It's going to allow you to do pyro reactions off the field, right? Both these characters love playing with Xingqiu. Well, guess what? Yoimiya, you build your Xingqiu damage is going to allow you to auto attack with Xingqiu, put pyro on everyone, and then proc that giant motion value, huge damage percent motion value skill in his elemental skill and blow them up, right? And then if you have Sacrificial Sword, wait a couple seconds, auto attack, blow them up again, super awesome, proc that, those particles, do all that cool stuff, activate your elemental burst, and then swap back into Yoimiya a little bit while later and do it all over again. That's why these characters can do similar amounts of damage, where Yoimiya's really making up some of the damage that she doesn't do herself into her best partner, Xingqiu, whereas Hu Tao really just crutches on Xingqiu. She says, "Man, boy, help me do as much damage as possible." Yoimiya's like, "Hey man, help me do more damage, and I'll help you do more damage in return." It's sort of like a more symbiotic relationship between those two characters. So that's the main thing that sort of like segregates them, but also like brings them back together so they kind of do damage in a similar amount, but in sort of semi-different ways. Now, both these characters also have their own iconic weapons that are just made for them, right? Hu Tao wants to stack HP, so you have Staff of Homa on Hu Tao, which also wants you to stack HP. So you're kind of double dipping into this whole strategy of stacking HP. Hu Tao gives you attack for HP, Staff of Homa gives you attack for HP. Fantastic. And then you have Yoimiya's iconic weapon, which is going to be the Thundering Pulse here. So Thundering Pulse has huge crit damage on it. Yoimiya has a native crit rate from Ascension, so that crit damage fantastic for her. Very easy to make utilization of that. It also has the thundering stack. So this is going to be 3 different iterations. The first stack comes from doing normal attacks. Well, you're using a normal attack character. Congratulations, you've done it. The second one is use your elemental skill. It'll give you a stack for 10 seconds. Your elemental skills buff also lasts 10 seconds. You've done it there too. And then the third one here is as long as you're not 100% energy on your elemental burst, you get that third stack. When you have all 3 stacks, you get 40% normal attack damage, which, congratulations, the vast majority of your damage is coming from normal attacks. So you have 5-star weapon stats, huge crit damage, 40% normal attack damage the vast majority of the time. This works very well with her. And the way you have that empty energy bar on Yoimiya is known for using her elemental burst right before she leaves the battlefield, and then she'll come back and fight for 10 seconds. She'll come back into like a half full energy gauge. And then by the time you've done 10 seconds worth of damage, you'll have the energy back, and then you'll use your elemental burst again. So these characters have these crazy good weapons for them, but where the difference is here is Yoimiya has a better 4-star options than Hu Tao does. Hu Tao has some good options for like the death match and maybe like the Dragon's Bane as well. But Yoimiya has the Rust and the crafted bow, the Hamayumi, which is right up there. Is it worse than her 5-star weapon? Yes. Whereas Hu Tao's weapons, her 4-star options, are worse than Staff of Homa, but they are much worse than Staff of Homa. Like Hu Tao will shine the most with Staff. Whereas like, yeah, Yoimiya will shine the most with Hamayumi, but she'll still shine, right? You want a shiny diamond or like a really shiny diamond? That's Yoimiya's thing, is that she will shine super well with the Rust. 80% normal attack damage at R5, 40% at R1. Okay, you have the Hamayumi, a crafted bow. 64% normal attack damage at R5 for a crafted bow. Yeah, that's pretty fantastic there. So that's one difference between the two of them there as well. Now, both of them are very similar in artifact selection choice. You have the new Shimawana's Reminiscence set, which is very fantastic for each of them in slightly different ways because it boosts normal attack damage, charge attack damage, plunging attack damage as well by 50%. It will drain your energy gauge by 15. So Hu Tao can kind of use this maybe in a slightly better way than a specifically cased Yoimiya using Hamayumi, because Hamayumi wants you to be at a 100% elemental burst gauge, right? So that's the one delineation where they're a little bit different between using this one set. However, they can both use good old witches set, right? Pyro damage up, vaporize damage up, overload damage up. That's going to be good. You could argue that if you want to run like an overload Yoimiya, that could be good if she's the one proccing overload over and over and over, but that's a different topic. And then if you're running like a GL squad with like a Zhongli shield or like a Noel shield, they could also use the good old retracing bullite set, 35% shield strength, so a little bit tankier on the battlefield, but also on top of that, you get 40% normal and 40% charge attack damage. Hu Tao has a non-bow with one of the best supports in the game by the name of Bennett, especially if you're using Hu Tao's best weapon, which is Staff of Homa. Staff of Homa wants you to get as low as possible in HP, that skill check. You get more attack based on the lower amount of HP you have, which is up to 50%. That's when you really get that big kickback from Staff. But on top of that, Bennett heals a ridiculous amount of HP. He's going to heal you to 70%, whether you want to be at 70 or not. It's going to be impossible to out damage Bennett's heal on Hu Tao. Whereas, well, Yoimiya doesn't care about any of that. Yoimiya can stand in Bennett, use Bennett as her second pyro support, stand in there, get the heals, don't care about it, get the attack buff, and that's where she's really going to catch up with the raw damage of Hu Tao between Bennett being the support and having the availability of Xingqiu as a viable option still, because even though she can't fully utilize Xingqiu as a reverse vaporizer, Xingqiu can utilize your girl Yoimiya as a full vaporizer on his E during her downtime with her elemental burst, guys. So all in all, when it comes down to who is better to who, they're literally neck and neck, but in different ways. If you want someone that you can just rely on, you want them to do all the damage themselves, Hu Tao is going to be better. If you want to go ahead and build like a damaged Xingqiu, right? Sacrificial sword, get the energy recharge, then get a bunch of crit chance, crit damage, and build like a next to perfect Xingqiu, or utilize Yoimiya in another way, like an electrocharged C6 official team, you can do cool stuff with her. Just know that she on her own isn't going to pull the entirety of the weight of your team. You really need to build around her as a character, which is her most unique thing. Is she incredibly powerful? 100%. Both these characters are incredibly powerful in their own right. Do you need both of them? No, you don't need anything on Genshin Impact. You just pick whatever your favorite stuff is to use. And can you use both of them if you like both of them? Yeah, dude, put Xingqiu with Hu Tao and then build like an Electro slash Pyro team that's gonna do overload spam, and maybe put an Animo character in there and have them swirl Electro and Pyro all over the place and blow everything up. That's gonna be a very viable team with Yoimiya as well, especially if you can use it in the correct way. So whatever it is that you guys decide to do, have fun with it. Come back, explain to me what you want to do in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys after you subscribe in the next one. Take care, guys.